Take a minute to think about this. Imagine waking up every single morning and sensing a heavy burden on your chest that no one else can see. You look through your social media, talk to the people around you, and go to your job. You reply to all your texts, and still, something doesn't feel right inside. Conversations feel colder than they used to be. People seem to get annoyed more easily. They act more guarded, more aggressive, or they just seem strangely empty inside. Now, try to realize that this is not just your own personal feeling, but it is a behavior that is happening all over the planet. Think very carefully about this specific question. What if the world we live in today is not just failing to help people get better, but is actually working to create more harmful and negative people than we have ever seen in the past? This video is not meant to point fingers at any individual.
Instead, it is about learning about the powers that are much stronger than just the choices we make personally. These are forces that change how we behave, twist our feelings, and quietly guide how people treat themselves and the others around them. Stay here with me, because the information you are going to hear will test how you think about the nature of humans, your own relationships, and even your own self. And the final piece of wisdom that will be shown later will be the most important and the most powerful of all, because it shows a way to break out of this bad cycle. If you like deep thoughts about psychology, wisdom, and the way people act, then please subscribe to this channel, give a like, share this video, and write down what you think in the comments. What you discover here might completely change the way you see modern life and the people you see every day. Redefining toxicity.
To understand why negative behavior is becoming so common, we must first change how we define what being toxic really means. Harmful people are not just being rude or trying to trick you or acting selfishly. At a deeper level, being toxic is a way for them to survive. It is a way of acting that is created by fear, old hurts that were never fixed, a lack of love, and the way society trains us to be. Sigmund Freud saw that when a person's feelings are pushed down instead of being dealt with, they never truly go away. Instead, they change into something else. They show up as anger, the need to control others, jealousy, or being emotionally numb. Modern society is extremely good at hiding our real emotions while pretending to encourage everyone to be happy. We are always told that we must be busy, positive, successful, and move on our own. But we are almost never taught how to actually feel our feelings, how to handle our pain, or how to just sit with being uncomfortable. Carl Jung gave a warning that the things we ignore in our own minds do not just leave, they fall deep into what he called the shadow. And this shadow does not just stay quiet, it shows itself through hostility and hurtful actions toward other people. Think about how people talk to each other today. Many conversations are not about listening to the other person, but about winning a fight. Many relationships are not about a real connection, but about getting someone else to say you are good. For example, social media gives rewards for being angry, comparing yourself to others, and acting like you are perfect. It trains the mind to see other people not as human beings, but as mirrors that show us our own fears and insecurities. The priorities of society.
The psychologist Erich Fromm said that when a society cares more about what people have than who they are, individuals start to value themselves based on outside things rather than their own inner character. This creates weak egos that get angry at any kind of criticism or any way that someone is different. Another very important reason is the stress that never ends. The way we live today keeps our nervous system under a lot of pressure all the time. Problems with money, having too much information, not getting enough rest, and the fear of falling behind others keep people in a state of fight or flight. Science shows us that when the brain stays in this mode used for staying alive for a long time, the ability to be kind goes down, while acting on bad impulses and being defensive goes up. In simple words, when people are stressed out, they are much more likely to act in a negative way, not because they are evil people, but because their bodies are overwhelmed.
Ask yourself this: how many people today feel truly safe, truly heard, or truly understood by others? When safety is gone, the need for control takes the place of trust. Tricking others takes the place of being honest. Closing off your heart takes the place of being open. Negative behavior often hides a deep feeling of being powerless inside.
Alfred Adler, who was one of the first famous psychologists, thought that many hurtful actions come from the feeling that you are smaller or less important than others. When people feel small on the inside, they might try to boss others around so they can feel important again. The loss of meaning.
Modern society also makes us lose touch with real meaning. Many people no longer feel like they are part of something bigger than themselves. Work feels empty. Relationships feel like business deals where you just trade things, and life feels rushed and broken into pieces. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, noticed that when people do not have a goal or a reason to live, they fall into a state of emptiness. This inner emptiness often shows itself through being aggressive, having addictions, or being mean to others. Here is a question that is worth thinking about. If a society always values speed over being deep, your image over being real, and competing over helping, what kind of people will it create? When being open is seen as a weakness and being kind is seen as not being efficient, people start to wear emotional armor as a normal thing. But that armor, while it protects us, also stops us from having any real connection.
As we move on, we will see how these things shape who we are, how hurts become a normal part of life, and why many people confuse being hard with being strong. What you are seeing now is just the surface. There is a deeper machine working that explains not only why negative people exist, but why even very kind people can act badly under certain conditions. Take a moment and ask yourself, in what ways has modern life changed your own feelings? Where have you felt forced to hide your true self, act tough, or perform for others instead of just being yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments, because thinking about this is the first step toward knowing. This journey is just starting. What comes next will show how these patterns are encouraged, how they spread through our culture, and why breaking free requires a big change in how we think. Rewards and early training.
Before we go on, it is important to look deeper into how these negative patterns are not just accidents, but results of the systems that guide us over time. Our world today does not just put up with negative behavior. In many ways, it actually gives prizes for it. Being bossy without having any kindness is often called good leadership. Being emotionally cold is mistaken for being strong. Being mean to get what you want is seen as ambition. Over time, people learn that to win and survive, they must hide their feelings and act tough. Think about how our early training plays a part. From a young age, many people are taught that their value depends on how well they perform, their grades in school, their work, or their looks. Popularity and status become the way we measure if someone is worthy. When love and approval are only given if you do well, the mind changes. A child learns that being their real self is risky, but being impressive to others is much safer. Donald Winnicott, a famous psychologist, called this the creation of a fake self, a social mask used to get accepted while hiding the real person inside. As adults, many people no longer know who they are behind this mask, and this inner gap often shows up as being easily annoyed, being defensive, or emotional coldness. The power of old wounds. Old hurts or trauma also play a big part, even if they are small or subtle. Trauma is not just huge accidents. It can be being ignored for a long time, always being compared to others, or growing up in a place where your feelings were not allowed. Science shows that old hurts that were never fixed change how we see the world. The brain starts to see normal situations as threats. This is why some people overreact, get angry, or shut down in moments that seem small to others. Their reactions are not about what is happening right now, but about old wounds that never healed. Today's world rarely makes room for fixing these wounds. Instead, it gives us distractions, endless videos, constant notifications, and noise that never stops. Blaise Pascal once noted that most of the sadness in the world happens because people cannot just sit in a room by themselves in silence. People avoid silence because it forces them to face their inner pain. When pain is avoided, it doesn't go away, it leaks into how we act and hurts others. Another big reason is moral confusion. The old ways that gave us a sense of right and wrong, like our local community and shared values, have become weak.
While we have more freedom, we have less guidance. Without a clear inner compass, people just act in whatever way the world rewards. Friedrich Nietzsche warned that when old values die and nothing replaces them, people risk not caring about anything at all. In that state, kindness goes away, because if nothing matters, other people don't matter either. Environment and contagion.
Negative behavior is also something you can catch. Humans are deeply affected by what everyone else is doing. When being rude, mean, or manipulative becomes common, it starts to feel like the normal way to be. Philip Zimbardo showed that the places and systems we are in can completely change how even good people act. If you put people in a system that rewards being bossy and punishes being open, cruelty will show up where kindness used to be. Think about jobs where people compete instead of help. Think about the internet, where being anonymous makes people mean. Think about relationships where people are treated like things that can be replaced. Over time, this trains people to protect themselves first and connect second. But protection without connection leads to being alone, and being alone leads to anger. Here is a hard but necessary question. How often do people today confuse protecting themselves with hurting their own lives?
Emotional walls might stop pain, but they also stop love, trust, and closeness. Carl Rogers believed that people act in hurtful ways not because they are naturally evil, but because they have lost touch with who they really are. When being real is not safe, being toxic becomes a backup. Modern society also makes us confused about our identity. People are told to keep changing their image, but they aren't told who they really are. This creates weak identities that need others to say they are good. When that stops, anger takes its place. This is why rejection or disagreement can cause so much hate today. The ego feels in danger because it has no solid ground. Becoming the mask. As you think about this, ask yourself, where have you seen these patterns in your own life or in others? Have you noticed times when stress, fear, or insecurity turned a kind person into a mean one? Knowing these patterns is key, because without understanding the roots, any try at change is just on the surface. What comes next will go even deeper. We will look at how people take these pressures inside, how bad behavior becomes part of who they think they are, and why breaking free needs more than just positive thinking or simple self-help. André Malraux said that a man is not what he thinks he is, but he is what he hides. Now, imagine something scary. Imagine that being harmful is no longer just an action, but it is an identity. Imagine people no longer saying, "I acted this way because I was hurt," but instead thinking, "This is just who I am." This is where the problem gets worse.
Modern society does not just create bad behavior, it slowly talks people into building their sense of self around it. Think about how often people define themselves by their defenses. I am cold because the world is mean. I am tough because being soft gets you hurt. These beliefs don't happen fast. They are learned over time after being let down many times. The mind starts to think being numb is being safe. The tragedy is that what once protected you eventually becomes your prison. Carl Jung called this identifying with the mask. The mask is what we wear to fit into society. It is useful, but dangerous if you think it is the real you. When someone thinks they are the mask, they lose their inner life. Kindness gets weak, and they get scared easily. This is not strength. It is like armor that is stuck to your skin. Shame and suppression.
Today's world moves too fast. People jump from one person or job to another without learning from what happened. Pain is not dealt with. It just piles up. And pain that isn't dealt with turns into a need for control, criticism, or pulling away. Look at how shame works. Shame is the feeling that you are wrong or bad deep down. Brené Brown explains that the feeling of shame grows when things are kept secret, silent, and judged by others. Modern culture, with all its comparisons, makes shame bigger. People compare their real lives to the fake best moments of others. The result is a weak self-image that is always under threat. When shame is triggered, people protect themselves. Some attack,
Some boss others around and some just leave. These are not random acts. They are protective moves. A harmful person is often someone who learned early on that being open leads to being hurt.
There is also emotional illiteracy. Most adults were never shown how to give names to their feelings or how to control them. Feelings become scary because they are unknown. Anger becomes the main reaction because it feels more like being in control than fear does. When emotions are not labeled, the brain can't process them well. This is why people explode over tiny things. Today's world praises staying strong and moving on fast, but hidden feelings don't go away. They change your tone and how you act. Ask yourself, how many fights are really about right now, and how many are just echoes of old hurts? When we can't separate who hurt us in the past from the person in front of us, negativity spreads. The loss of maturity.
We have also lost the way we become adults. In the past, there were rituals to mark the change. Today, many people get older but stay children inside. They take on jobs and responsibilities, but they don't have emotional maturity. Because of this, acting on every feeling becomes normal. Martin Heidegger warned that when people live only on the surface and just follow the crowd, they lose their real selves. This creates anxiety, which turns into being mean to others. Here is a big thought. Being harmful feels powerful for a short time. It creates distance and control. But in the long run, it ruins trust and meaning. People with big walls eventually feel alone, even if they aren't by themselves. This loneliness makes them think others can't be trusted, which keeps the cycle going. As you listen, ask yourself honestly, which of these patterns feel familiar to you? This is not to judge you, but to help you understand. Knowing the truth is the start of being free.
What comes next is the most important part of this entire discussion. We will look at why just knowing is not enough and how real change starts. The final part will reveal the most powerful point of all. Viktor Frankl said that between what happens to us and how we act, there is a small gap. In that gap, we have the power to decide how we will behave, and that is where our growth and freedom live. The power of responsibility.
Now we arrive at the most important insight of all, the one that changes everything, and that society rarely teaches us. Being harmful does not end by just fighting toxic people. It ends when individuals take responsibility for their own inner world. This is the big turning point. Most people think change happens when the world gets nicer or slower or more fair. But history and psychology show a harder truth. The world affects us, but it doesn't decide who we become. What truly shapes a person is the relationship they have with their own mind. Modern society creates negativity because it tells people to blame others, the system, their childhood, their trauma, or other people. While these things explain why we act a certain way, they are not an excuse to stay that way. Jung said we become whole when we stop blaming the world and take ownership of our own dark side. Until then, people remain trapped in cycles of reacting.
Here is the big shift. The opposite of being toxic is being conscious. Consciousness is the ability to stop, watch, and then choose how to act. It is being able to feel pain without immediately throwing it at someone else. This is not a weakness. It is true psychological strength. Modern society wants us to react instantly to everything, notifications, fights, and anger. But bad patterns need speed. When you pause, you have a choice. Meaning and final thoughts.
Viktor Frankl survived terrible suffering and still said that meaning is found in how we answer life, not just in what happens to us. This idea destroys the base of harmful behavior. Healing doesn't mean the pain is gone, it means you have processed it. When feelings are named and dealt with, they lose their power to hurt. This is why knowing yourself is a necessity. Modern society also needs to change how it sees strength. Strength is not being cold, it is staying open in a world that wants you to close up. Hannah Arendt warned that not thinking is the root of much cruelty. When we stop reflecting, we stop seeing others as humans. Meaning is very important. People with a purpose are much less likely to be harmful. Frankl said if you know why you live, you can handle almost any how. A meaningful life doesn't require you to be better than others, it just needs a goal. Negative people are often those who feel lost inside. They have no purpose or self-understanding.
When you feel empty, you look for power or control. The answer is not punishment, but stopping the cycle with your own mind. Ask yourself this final question and be honest. In a stressful moment, do you just react automatically, or do you pause and choose? That space is where harmful behavior dies and kindness returns. The world may be loud and confusing, but it doesn't get to decide who you are. You decide that, one choice at a time. When enough people choose to be aware instead of angry, the whole culture starts to change. This is the quiet revolution. No computer program will promote this, yet it is the only force strong enough to fix what is broken. If this helped you, share your thoughts. Which point was the hardest for you? Your awareness matters more than you think. Remember this: a person who is aware of their own mind in a world that is fast and unthinking is not a weak person. They are very rare, and being rare is where real strength lives. Thanks for watching.